Hey everybody, this is Mike Bruce with Life Starts with Food Health Coaching, and I'm here with Dr. Al Danenberg. His full name's actually Alvin, and I really like the name Alvin. So I'm sorry, I didn't know if that was, I just like that name. So
you and my mother, just you and my mother like this name.
Oh, okay. I had a friend that was years ago that I used to work with named Alvin, and I loved it. I don't know why. I think that's cool. So,
okay.
So Dr. Al is a periodontist. He was in practice for 44 years. He's incorporated ancestral nutrition over the last several years, and as well as lifestyle. He combined this into a leading edge laser protocol to treat periodontal disease. In 2018, he actually retired from the practice of treating individual patients, but he still actually consults with patients over phone, Skype, Zoom, all different things regarding nutrition, lifestyle, overall health, and the importance of gut health for the health of our entire body. It really is the cornerstone of our body, of the health and immune system. Dr. Al received advanced training in evolutionary nutrition from the, can you pronounce that for me? Kripalu Center for Yoga and Health, which is a really cool story. I like this one. As well as the Center for Mind-Body Medicine. Back in 2014, he received a certification, a functional medicine practitioner designation, as well as his certification as a certified primal health coach, which is how I came to find Dr. Danenberg. And in 2015, he was appointed to the faculty of the College of Integrative Medicine and created the college's integrative periodontal teaching module. Then in April of 2017, he earned the designation of ADAPT Training Health Professional, which is actually from Dr. Kresser's Institute, which is really cool. 2017, he released his first book, Crazy Good Living, and which is based on ancestral living and nutrition. And Dr. Danenberg, would you like to tell me your most recent thing that happened just here in April of 2014?
Sure, obviously. I was asked to participate as the chair of periodontology or periodontics for the International Academy of Biological Dentistry and Medicine, which I thought was a great honor. And they also asked me to make some contribution for learning materials. And I actually took some time and created what is now the first certified program that's being offered by the IABDM for all dentists, dental hygienists, and dental staff. And it's called a Certified Biological Nutritional Dental Professional. And individuals, dentists, dental hygienists, dental staff, can actually go to their website, apply and get onto the course. It's all recorded. It's 4 1.5-hour seminars that also include quite a bit of written material, which is all original from me. And then there's an exam at the end. And if you pass the exam, you get a certification paper, as well as a little plaque that tells you this certification designation, so that you can put it on your wall. You know, dentists like to put plaques on their wall, so there's another plaque to put on your wall.
Yeah.
And it's very exciting because they actually just started marketing this program. It's as fresh as it can be, and like I said, it's unique because there is no certification like this ever in the world, and it's so important for dentists to understand the relationship of nutrition and the gut and the mouth and all of its effects throughout the body.
Yeah.
And unfortunately today, even biological dentists that understand a lot of the mouth and a lot of the inner workings of the body, they don't really get, some of them do, but many of them don't get the important relationship of the gut, very specific nutrition that supports the gut, and then the health of the mouth.
Yeah.
So this is what it's all about.
Yeah, and something some people might be saying, okay, so we're going to talk about tooth health today, and no. So I don't think a lot of people realize that the original rock stars in the health industry are dentists. And just think back when you were a kid, the first doctor, the only doctor you ever heard that say anything about food was a dentist saying, "Stop eating sugar." But way prior to that, we have Weston A. Price. We have, I believe Royal Lee was a dentist. And do you know if he was?
Royal Lee from Standard Process?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
He was a dentist. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there's a number of doctors that really changed the health and wellness industry, or have really made their mark on it that are all dentists, and you are another in the long line. And so I'm really honored to be able to speak with you and be able to have you on to talk about what you are going through currently, which is
another story.
Man, this is a cool story. So you were diagnosed in 2018, September of 2018, with cancer, and
yeah.
I'll let you go into this because
so it could be a long story or a short story. I don't know if you want the abbreviated form, but
it's totally up to you.
You stop me anytime you start to yawn. If you start to yawn and I see you yawning, I know to shut up. So basically, by the time, let's say 2018, the beginning of 2018, I was 70 years old, and I was doing very well. As a matter of fact, I consider myself the senior poster boy for nutrition and lifestyle. I was very healthy. I was weighing maybe 150 or ish, 52 pounds, 5'7". That's not the way I started. I actually started my health journey when I was 66. Getting over actually a stroke at the age of 59, which is kind of interesting. And I never could figure out what to do for my health from the age of 59 until 66. My doctors had no answers. I went to the American Cancer Society, the American Diabetes Association, the American Heart Association, trying to figure out what really I could do for diet and lifestyle to get my health better, because obviously if you have a stroke at 59, you're not a healthy person. And my doctors at the time, when I was 59, put me on 7 medications. So these 7 medications theoretically were for the rest of my life. At that time, I weighed 187 pounds. So at the age of 86, I was still on medications. I was still heavy, or at least relatively heavy. And I found a course at the Kripalu Center for Yoga and Health, of all places. And it was a 5-day intensive nutrition course for healthcare professionals. I thought it was an amazing concept. And I thought it would just really summarize everything that I had known, had learned, and I thought it was going to tell me that everything I learned was right. So I went to this course, and of all things, it was on something weird called Primal Nutrition and Lifestyle. I never heard the term.
Yeah.
And it was basically Paleolithic living. Mm-hmm. And it related to our ancestors and diets from primal societies today, and how our Western diets were so damaged. And it just blew my mind. And I learned, unfortunately, that everything I was doing was wrong. So, even at that age, 66, I have an open mind. I'm ready to make changes if it makes sense to me. Yeah. So I went home, and my wife, I called her just before I got home, and I said, I think I'd like to make some changes. And when I got home, she and I literally bumped heads for a while. And then she said, I'll give you 30 days. And we proceeded to remove all of the harmful foods that are not paleo type foods from our refrigerator, freezer, cupboard. So we accumulated 7 bags of groceries. We took them to the local food bank, and we had no food in the house. So because that's all the stuff that we were eating, unfortunately. Yeah. So we learned how to start shopping for organic. We learned how to shop for pasture-raised meats and wild-caught fish. And of course, we're only buying fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds, minus the legumes. And for the most part, that was my diet and lifestyle. And I started to do lifestyle changes like Mark Sisson recommends, which is, he's phenomenal.
Genius.
Genius. He is just genius.
And it's so common sense when you hear it. That's the worst part, right?
It is. It is. It is. Even the way I talk about dentistry is kind of common sense. It doesn't have to deal with the nonsense that a lot of dentists put you through. We can talk about that too. But so I incorporated all this diet and lifestyle. And from the age of 66 to about 68, I lost all over 30 pounds. I was completely weaned off all prescription medications.
Yeah.
And I was doing and feeling great and healthy. So I started to incorporate all these concepts into the way I treat periodontal disease or gum disease with my patients. And the patients that accepted what I told them, and it was a small percentage, because, what does a dentist know, right? So when I told them about diet and lifestyle and making changes not only in their mouth, but their overall health, the ones that accepted what I did recommended did phenomenally well. We could actually treat early stages of gum disease without any dental treatment, just diet and lifestyle changes. It's amazing, right?
Yeah.
And again, you're talking about just so practical, it's common sense. Well, it was only common sense for our primal ancestors. They didn't realize it, but that's how they practiced living.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm lecturing and doing seminars, and so now I'll bring it to this point that you were making. When I was 71, in April of 2018, I was actually traveling from Charleston, South Carolina to Austin, Texas to speak at PaleoFX. And as I'm traveling, I have to go through Atlanta Airport like I do whenever I go anywhere, because Charleston's not a direct hub for anything. So when I go through Atlanta, it's a big airport, there's a lot of concourses, and I try to schedule my connections actually enough apart so I can walk the concourses rather than take the train. So I'm walking from concourse A to concourse C or D, wherever it was. And I always put my bag on my right shoulder. It's not a problem. I just walk. But my shoulder was getting sore, and I didn't realize why it was getting sore, but it was getting sore. I get to Austin, I do my seminar, everything's great. I go back to Charleston, the soreness continues, and it goes to my back. And then it comes to my front chest area, and I'm a hardhead. It just takes a long time for me to get it through my skull. And then I realize, I need to have somebody else look at me. So I go to my physician, my general physician, who I've known for over 35 years. And it's now August of 2018, and I go to my physician, and he says, "Yeah, you got some soreness." Well, duh, I know, I've got soreness. Tell me what's going on. So he did some blood work, and all the blood, which is fascinating now, all the blood tests come back normal, within the range of normal, except one extra test that he did, which was called a Hscrp. It's a high sensitivity C-reactive protein, which is a biomarker for inflammation in the body. Now, it doesn't tell the doctor that's reading the result where the inflammation is or what caused the inflammation. It doesn't tell if it's chronic or acute. It just says something's wrong. And I've never had a high CRP, and now it was a high CRP. And he says, let's kind of figure out where we are. Let's do an MRI. This is a type of test. It's not an X-ray, and it looks at a lot of soft tissue and issues. And he's thinking, there's a pulled muscle, this, that, whatever. Then the MRI comes back.
A high CRP. I mean, people walking around anywhere in America might have a high CRP for all sorts of reasons, right?
Absolutely. So it's not diagnostic. For example, if you have a splinter in your finger and you're getting a lot of infection in your finger, you'll have a high CRP. So and it's important to know that this is not diagnostic. It doesn't mean that you're going to have a heart attack the next week or you're dying. Mm-hmm. It just says something is causing this. Let's see if it's a chronic situation. Let's see if it's acute. Let's see if there's anything in the body. But the fact is, if you have a high CRP, and you have something going on in your body that's creating systemic inflammation, that is a biomarker to alert you that you need further testing. Yeah. So it basically said we needed something, and the next test was an MRI. So the MRI is a head-to-toe MRI, and it looks at mainly soft tissue, and it sees bone, but not like a CT scan. So the MRI comes back, my physician calls me and he says, "Al, do you want to come into the office? You want to talk over the phone?" I said, "How bad could it be? Let's talk over the phone." And he says, "Well," and then he gets serious and he says, "I think that you have," and I'd be concerned if I were you, "I think you have either lymphoma, leukemia, and multiple myeloma." Now, wait a minute. These are 3 doors I'm not trying to open here. And how could that be? I am a healthy guy, right? I feel good. I don't look sick. I don't feel sick, except I have this pain. And now it's in my chest. What's going on? And he says, From the MRI, I see that you have a vertebral compression fracture. You have 2 ribs that are broken and a hairline crack in your pelvis and a soft tissue mass on the side of your spine. What happened? And I'm saying, nothing happened. I just walked from Atlanta's Concourse A to Concourse C. What is going on? He says, as he told me, I have 3 possible diagnoses, none of which are good, all of which are cancer. And he says, let's call in an oncologist, let's do some more tests. And we do that. And the tests are a very involved CT scan now. And that looks at the bone in different layers. It's a 3-dimensional picture. And in this CT scan, it's called a PET, P-E-T CT scan. What they do is to inject a radioactive glucose solution in a vein, and cancer cells eat glucose for their energy in a significant abundance, and this radioactive glucose would then get sucked up by the cancer cells, and it would glow on this X-ray, and they would see where the cancer cells are. So we do that, and then we do a biopsy of the soft tissue mass and a few other cancer-type blood tests, and I'm seeing the oncologist for the consult. My wife, my 2 adult kids are there, and my oncologist, who is an awesome guy, and I still see him today, but conventional, tells me I have a cancer called IgA kappa light chain multiple myeloma, big term, for an aggressive bone marrow cancer. And the radiologist found innumerable lytic lesions throughout my skeleton. That means I have holes everywhere, demineralized holes throughout my skeleton. And interestingly, when multiple myeloma is diagnosed, there's a lot of forms of multiple myeloma, but one of the ways to describe it is to count the number of holes in the bone. So there's 1 lytic lesion or 3 lytic lesions. I have so many that my radiologist said it's innumerable, can't count them.
Wow.
And that's the reason I had pain, because all these fractures were occurring because my body is so fragile and the weight of my body can damage and break a bone. Had no idea that's what happened. And this is the only symptom I ever had, was the pain in my shoulder that went to my chest. And from what I understand, most people that have significant multiple myeloma have this as their first symptom, because regular blood work sometimes shows it. Sometimes you have a high calcium in your serum, but I didn't. So anyhow, he talks to me and he describes that this is an incurable disease, and he gives me 3 to 6 months to live in September 2018. If I did nothing. And he says, let's get you scheduled immediately for chemotherapy and then radiation to take care of the pain in your chest, because I can't breathe at this point. I can't take any deep breaths. And then we'll see what happens later on. We'll probably do some bisphosphonates for the bone and maybe stem cells, but I don't think stem cells are going to work in your case. And on and on and on. And I'm sitting there, you know, like a deer in the headlights. What do you do? And I'm telling him, or asking him, you say it's incurable, right? And he agrees, and he says, and I say, why would I do chemotherapy, which is number 1, archaic treatment, and number 2, destroys my immune system, which is already compromised, and literally create a low quality of life until the chemotherapy puts me in remission, and then I'll be okay for a while. But the problem is, and he concurs, that eventually the remission will go away and I'll have this cancer again, spreading its manifestation of symptoms, and I'll have to have another round, but a different, more caustic round of chemotherapy, because the previous would not work anymore. And eventually none of the chemicals that are being poured into my bloodstream would be effective. Meanwhile, my quality of life is going downhill constantly. I would have many, many more years to live in a debilitated state. Let me tell you, Mike, that's not the way I want to live. And this is very serious. I am ready, and I am ready right now. I am ready to die. I have no problem with that. I'm sorry about that.
No worries.
Just a second. I'm ready to die. I have no problem with that. And I feel very comfortable with that decision. The only thing I want is a quality of life. Like Mark Sisson says, live long and drop dead, right?
Yeah.
And that's all I want to do. I don't care when I die, but I would like to die from a heart attack like that or whatever.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, everybody probably says that, but see what you think and say when you're in the moment to make that decision.
That's really tough. That's something that that it tells the relationship that you and your doctor had, because oftentimes doctors will immediately use the fear of God in order to tell you how wrong you are, and that you should do this very expensive treatment.
Sadly enough, you are absolutely 100% correct. I know of patients who literally have had oncologists fire them as patients because they refused the caustic chemotherapy. Or they've discussed alternative therapy and the doctors have said, I'm not going there. You can do it if you want, but it's not going to help. And you do it my way or it's the highway.
Yeah.
It's sad when a person has a disease that is going to create as much problem as a cancer will, and you have this fear at that moment. What do you do? Who do you see? And if that person you see isn't empathetic, you start to spiral into an abyss of depression along with everything. And by the way, stress in and of itself damages the gut enough to create what's called metabolic endotoxemia, which is the pouring of junk and infection into the bloodstream from the gut, that it can accentuate the cancer as well as any and every other chronic disease. So it's sad. But anyhow, my oncologist is not that way. He said to me, I totally agree with you. I understand what you're saying. And I said, so George, here's what I want to do. I want to do some research. I will have radiation on my chest because I can't breathe. If I take a deep breath, it's excruciatingly painful. I had the radiation, took care of that, no problem. My research, mainly through PubMed.gov, which is an institute, a resource for medical abstracts published all over the world in medical journals, and it's hosted by the National Institute of Health, and it's free. Anybody can use it, and that you can get abstracts from everywhere. So I did some research on my condition and alternative types of treatment that is being done and reported from a variety of different people. So I wanted something substantiated, and I created what I call my unconventional cancer protocols. Also, I interviewed a couple of integrative physicians, and they gave me some ideas. Most of them I have discarded because they included like 60 or so supplements in addition to other things that I was going to have to take every day. And I don't know about you, but 2 or 3 capsules is enough for me to take. And 60, divided twice a day, like 30 a day before I eat or in between when I eat it, it's gagging. And the other thing that's very important to understand that no one tells you, all these let's say the supplements were really good, which they were not, but let's say they were really good and they were really from natural sources. The chemicals that are in the capsules and tablets to form these capsules and tablets in and of itself, just maybe one capsule, not so bad, but 30 or 60, multiply the ingredient by 30 or 60 that I'm putting into my gut that has been shown to damage the gut microbiome. That doesn't make sense to me. It's like trying to put out a fire but spraying gasoline on the fire too. It doesn't work. It doesn't work.
I've actually noticed with myself, and I'm very in tune with how my body works most of the time. I've taken enzymes for different reasons, and when I've taken them out of the capsule, out of the plant-based capsule that they come in, they feel a whole lot better in my stomach when I just have the powders, take them out. And I was doing that I was taking them for probably 3 months before I realized, like, man, these aren't feeling as good as they should. And just something in my head, your intuition just kicks in like it's supposed to. And it said, take them out of the capsule, dummy.
Well, this is part of the and you're right. That's a good thing, but also in the ingredients inside the capsule have some chemicals that make it more form like it's a hard tablet. It has some harder material that keeps it as a solid capsule tablet, and others that are there to be emulsifiers actually are very harmful for the gut. So, in fact, a lot of these are harming my gut, even if the other ingredients theoretically are helping my gut. So I kind of discarded those, but I created my cancer protocols. I went through that, and I was seeing my oncologist every 2 weeks, and nothing was getting worse, but nothing was getting really better. I was basically stable. I never went into remission, but I was good. And after the radiation from my chest, I could breathe. I had no problems. I just knew that my skeleton was fragile. So from September 2018 until maybe August of 2019, I was doing quite well. I had a few fractures. If that happened to anybody else, that would be devastating, but I got used to it. I actually had another vertebral fracture. I had problems with my legs because of the vertebral fracture closer to my spine. But I got through that. Not a big deal. So August of 2019, I'm standing in front of my mirror in my bathroom, brushing and flossing my teeth. Now, I know how to brush and floss my teeth. So I do that pretty well. So I'm cleaning my mouth. My feet are planted on the floor, and I'm turning slightly to the left, 90 degrees, to throw the dental floss away. Now, again, I know that I have fragile bones, but I don't know what that means completely. I twist my body to the left, and my right femur snaps in half.
Wow.
Now, wait a minute. I don't know what is happening at this moment, but my right femur snaps in half. I collapse to the ground. Obviously, all of a sudden you don't have a leg.
Yeah.
I collapse to the ground. I bounce off my ceramic tile floor and break 2 ribs and crack my right humerus on my right arm in half also.
Nothing funny about that.
No, well, if you can imagine the worst pain, I know, and I'm laughing too. I had no problem with that.
Yeah.
I can laugh at myself now. So I fall to the ground, writhing in pain. Whatever severe pain you can think of, just multiply it by 10. I'm screaming. I can't move. My wife comes in. She's in the other room. She comes in. Of course, there's a motion here. She realizes what's happening. She calls EMS. They try to get me out of this bathroom and into a stretcher. It's pretty hard to do. They get me into a stretcher. They send me to the hospital, and I have to have my leg reset, of course. And if they didn't reset it, I would actually have perforated my femoral artery, and I would have bled to death. Now, I am in so much pain. I am ready to die, and I wanted to die. And as a matter of fact, I refused everything else at the hospital, and they put me in hospice, and they sent me to a hospital to die. I was catheterized. I had to use a bedpan. I was heavily drugged on narcotics. It was so demeaning. I don't know if you ever had this experience, but it is demeaning. And so I was ready to die. So I'm in this hospital, and this is the end of August, the first week of September, and there is a hurricane that is threatening Charleston called Hurricane Dorian. It's moving at 1 mile an hour, but it has 185-mile winds. Jeez. So the hospital is ordered to evacuate their patients. So to evacuate their patients, they didn't know where to send me. My wife is an RN. She scampers and gets a hospital bed in the house. She gets a hospital bed in the house. I get into they transport me to my house. The hurricane hits. The power goes out. By the way, hospital beds are electric, so they don't run without electricity. I can't move. It is humid. It's hot. There's no air conditioning. There's no television. There's no communication, and this is the way it is for another 13 plus hours. And then finally the power comes on, and my wife, and I'm still in hospice. My wife plays a little bit of tough love with me. She's a phenomenal pillar for my life. And she says, look, you are not a victim, you're a survivor. You did so well with your protocols until this accident in the bathroom. We need to get you right. You need to get your head together. So she gets a physical therapist in, and he helps me. We have a nurse that comes in to help me with normal bodily functions. And so within several weeks, I am really starting to rally. I revoke hospice. The catheter comes out finally, and I get started to move around the house with a little walker, and eventually I get be able to go outside and walk a little bit with a walker. And in October, I go to see my oncologist, and I'm pretty well recovered, which is fantastic. Now, he's talking to me in very positive terms, but he was talking about some new immunotherapy drugs that were just approved by the FDA for my disease. Now, this is not chemotherapy. These are actually human-derived monoclonal antibodies that actually can kill specifically my cancer cells, my malignant plasma cells in my bone marrow. And so I start that therapy and include it in my unconventional cancer protocols. And then
up to this point, were you, because I know you went ketogenic in the beginning of this.
Okay, let's go on that.
Because I know a lot of the people that follow me are paleo, ketogenic, carnivore. I've been carnivore for about 1.5 years myself, mostly because I had some gut issues. And were you already carnivore at this point?
No, so this is so critical. This is part of my unconventional cancer protocol. So let's go back to that. I was paleo when I was at the age of 66, and I was continued to be paleo until I was diagnosed with cancer at the age of 71 in September 2018. Then I took paleo and converted it to paleo autoimmune, meaning that I just completely eliminated nightshades. I didn't eliminate eggs, and I never had a problem with eggs, but I eliminated all nightshades. And I was just very careful not to cheat on this diet. And I continued that from my diagnosis until January 1st, 2020. Now, I did some research about the carnivore diet. And if you've not delved into the research, it's amazing and literally beautiful.
Yeah.
It is an eye-opener. Number one, our physiology of our digestive system from at least 160,000 years ago, that's a little older than me.
Yeah.
By the way, you can tell I have white hair, but it's not completely missing. So 160,000 years of evolution, we have evolved our digestive system, and we have a stomach that produces an acidity of 1 to 1.3, which is unlike the stomachs of other herbivores or other primates. They have an acidity much less acid because they're not eating animal products, they're eating plant food. We have this acidity because when we eat animal products, sometimes the animal products are rotting because of microbes, and the acidity in our stomach kills the microbes. And that's why we can eat rotten food, theoretically. And that's what we did as evolution brought us to this point. Not every animal we ate was a fresh kill. Some was dying already or dead, and the meat was stored, but not very well, so it rotted a little bit. So that's one thing. The other thing is we have a small intestine that's relatively long because it is more efficient. The small intestine is more efficient to digest animal-based products. We have a colon that's relatively short and small because we don't eat a lot of plant foods from an evolutionary standpoint. So you don't need the colon to break down and take the time to digest plant food material. And we don't have a cecum of any consequence that animals that are basically eating plant foods have. So our digestive system is designed for a carnivore or an animal-based, not 100%, but an animal-based diet. And you can look at skeletal remains, and anthropology has shown, and archaeological digs have shown that some of the remnants in the human skeletons of those days showed that we were really eating animals to a much larger extent than plants. Number one. Number two is that There is a clinic in Budapest, Hungary, called the Paleomedicina Clinic. Since 2011, they have been treating patients exclusively with their animal-based diet, which they call the Paleolithic ketogenic diet, very strict carnivore type diet.
Very high fat, moderate protein. It's right. I mean, they change it for every patient too, if I'm not mistaken. They
tweak it. So when I say strict, it's strict based on their recommendations and their science, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But they've treated about 4,000 plus patients with that diet. That diet is unique. There is no supplements given to these patients, no prescription medications, just the diet. And they're treating severe and incurable chronic diseases as well as incurable cancers. And they have case reports that are published of all these results. Now, when you mentioned they tweak the diet, yes, they say the diet is strict in that you have to eat at least 70% of this animal-based. The meat, the muscle meat, the protein part of it is not excessive. What is excessive is the fat. So the fat to protein in grams ratio is a 2-to-1 or higher fat content, because we want to stay in a state of ketosis if possible. And you can have as much as 30% of some vegetables or fruits, but no more than 1 serving per day, because some fruits and vegetables are not harmful or not as harmful, but you have to stay away from fruits and vegetables that have high concentrations of phytates or lectins or oxalates. So you have to do a little research to figure that out. But you have to be on basically a paleo diet, basically a keto diet, but basically no other supplements or medications. Very interesting. So that research is fascinating. And when I learned about the physiology of our digestive system from evolutionary times, and I learned about the benefits of a carnivore diet specifically for cancer, I was not trying to lose any weight. I just wanted to get my cancer under control. It made so much sense. So I started and switched to that on January 1st. I have been very, very strict with my carnivore diet. Just recently, I have added a little bit of this and a little bit of that, but certainly no grains, no legumes, no added sugar, no processed seed oils, basically very strict paleo, but definitely strict carnivore in that definition I just mentioned to you. So that is how I eat today, and that is one of my keystones for my unconventional cancer protocols.
And people will argue that, we don't need to have food doesn't matter. It's all about the medicine, all about supplementation. And it cracks me up because we take a gram of a supplement and expect it to change our lives. We put kilograms of food we shovel it into our mouth and think it does nothing. So I do love that when because you don't look like someone who's been dead for 17 months. So,
right. Okay. Here we go. Let's talk about this. So I go to the cancer clinic now every month. I have blood work every month. I see cancer patients that are white. I see cancer patients that are bent over. I see cancer patients that are very sluggish. They move like they are infirmed, and some of them are. And I refuse to do that. The other thing about the infusion clinic in my cancer clinic, which is probably typical of every cancer clinic in the United States, which is sad, is that on occasion, the nurses, one nurse specifically,
I think I know where you're
has
going.
served chocolate chip cookies to the cancer patients that are receiving chemotherapy infusions. Or they're asked, do you want a soda or some crackers?
That's infuriating, right? I mean, like for me, it is. Same with
diabetic
patients in the hospital, and they're like, we have to give you this much sugar so we can control your sugar with insulin, and that blows me away.
Let me just tell you, when I went for my original diagnosis, I was required to have a dietitian's consultation to discuss diet and cancer. So this dietitian is talking to me, and I'm not the kind of person that sits and listens well. You know, when I go to a restaurant and I have a meal and I want my steak medium rare and it comes back medium, I not only let them know it, I say, this is not what I ordered. My wife cringes and my kids cringe when I do this. So my dietitian is saying what my diet should be as a cancer patient. And I say, well, what kind of food should I eat? And she said, well, anything that you want to eat, just make sure that you get the calories in. You don't want to lose weight. And I'm looking at her and I said, wait a minute. One of the things that I do that you don't even know that I do is I am into nutrition. I am into gut health. I do a lot of research on this. Are you telling me that the only thing that matters is calories, and you're not recommending at least a paleo diet or maybe a carnivore diet if you've done any research, and you're telling me anything that puts calories and I can have as much bread and cereals and other junk? So I walked out. She didn't like me. I didn't like her. And she's not a bad person. The sad thing is dietitians who you think are professionals that understand diet say these things. Now, I got, and this is very controversial, but because you're a carnivore, your people are probably carnivores, they're going to get this. But the vegan/vegetarian diet is probably one of the unhealthiest diets in the world. And by the way, there is no primal society in evolutionary history that has ever been a vegan and survived. Yeah. Period. End of story. The other thing is, I know I'm interrupting you, but one more thing I want to mention is that we are controlled by our genetic blueprint. Our DNA in every cell of our body is a duplicate of every other cell in our body as far as DNA is concerned. And it knows what we need to put in our body to generate the energy and nutritional requirements. And it also knows what cannot be put in our body because it doesn't either have the mechanisms or it is toxic. There is no way that our bodies have ever evolved the enzymatic activity to break down a compound of gluten into basic amino acids. The best we can do is to break them down into clumps of amino acid called peptides, and these are irritating, and one of which is called gliadin, attacks the epithelial barrier of our gut, creates holes in our gut in every human being on earth. Now, some people have a bigger problem than others, and most people, if they have a problem, it doesn't manifest for not months or even years, sometimes decades. My cancer, I believe, started in toxicity that I received when I was in dental school over 40 years ago, only manifested recently because it got out of control. My immune system was not strong enough to deal with this. So the DNA is saying this cannot be put in our body. Don't make it fancy enough to look at appetizing. Don't make it smell so good we have to eat it. Don't make it so tasty that we have to chew it. It's just not healthy food. If it's arsenic no matter how you label it. Right?
That's a great point. These natural toxins, the natural pesticides that plants have, they're made to kill ants and bugs and things like that with just a couple bites. Right. It destroys their immune system, does all these things, or it destroys their guts and kills them from the inside. We eat pounds of this, and we think that we're supposed to eat more and more. If we don't feel good, we should eat even more of them. And that was, to think that broccoli and cauliflower and kale are these superfoods, and they didn't exist 150 years ago. They were bred out of a poisonous mustard plant. And it's just crazy that was what we were pushed on as, this is super healthy, that you have to have this. Just with I always tell patients I work at a doctor's office. I always tell these patients that, if you're going to put a new part on a Ford truck, it has to be a Ford part. It can't be a Toyota part. You can do it, but man, it takes a lot of work. So we really
That's a good point. That's a good analogy, and I totally agree with you. What we have been taught to to believe that the word phytonutrient is a healthy benefit in our body.
Yeah.
And there are many, many studies that show these phytonutrients may have a beneficial result, and they may, but it's the complicating factors. You know, you can take a medication, a prescription medication, and it has proven to do certain things. But if you read the potential side effects, it's significantly longer to read than the beneficial results. There are always side effects. So what risk are you taking to eat these foods? And the beautiful thing in animal-based diets is that the animals have the stomach and intestines to digest these anti-nutrients, to destroy them and eliminate them and absorb the nutrients into their meat and their fat and their organs and their collagenous materials.
Yeah.
And those are more biologically active in our body. And the other beautiful thing is, it was thought that you're going to be vitamin C deficient if you eat only animals. Well, it turns out that there is significant vitamin C in organ meats, especially liver.
Yeah.
It's a different chemical vitamin C than the vitamin C in plants. So the vitamin C in animals is more heat stable, more readily available to our body. And the vitamin C actually competes with excess glucose to get into the cell. So if you don't have excess glucose from a high carbohydrate diet, you need very little vitamin C to be absorbed by the cell. We need lots and lots of vitamin C from plant-based sources to get the right saturation to force itself into the cells because of all the glucose that is there.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. The other thing is, a lot of people say, how can you have a healthy gut and healthy bowel movements if you are eating animal-based foods? There's no fiber. Well, it turns out there was a paper that was just published a year and a half ago, phenomenal paper, that showed that all microbial colonies in the gut can ferment amino acids to get the necessary short-chain fatty acids without having fiber. Yeah. And the body's motility, the ability for you to move food from the mouth all the way through and out your anus, basically is controlled by a variety of things, including mast cells inside the epithelial barriers of your digestive system. Okay. So there are natural ways for us to survive better on an animal-based diet, with maybe here or there a smattering of maybe some healthy vegetables or fruits, but minimally.
And I like to tell people too, seasonally, it makes sense. The reason we have variety in food, that we're supposed to have variety in food, I think it was an accidental approach, an accidental thing to get right. Variety with plants is because the hormetic stressors over and over and over again, if it's the same ones, they can cause damage. There's a reason there's seasonality in food. We would be carnivore for 4 to 6 months, depending on where you are in this world. And then you would have fruit and berries first thing in the year, some veggies in the middle of the year, and then big sugary fruits at the end of the year to fatten up for winter. And then you go back to carnivore again. So let's jump.
And one more thing. And then there's the Society of the Inuits that basically are eating whale blubber, right?
Yeah.
And they do it all the time.
Yeah.
And they're extremely healthy. And the researchers that were there for a year or so that ate their diet also stayed healthy. Even scientifically, they were evaluated to make sure that there were no deficiencies, and they had none. Yeah. So it's kind of interesting. It's a great way to eat. And that's one of my unconventional cancer protocols.
Yeah. So we have food, a carnivore approach to treating cancer. And then you were starting to talk about I'm sorry, I'm losing the word. System? There you go. Yeah, the immune system.
Oh, my immune therapy?
Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So go ahead with that. And something I know, a friend that's watching, Kelly, she would love to hear more, and I would too, about your PEMF device, because that's something that I am a big believer in. Earthing, grounding, getting sunlight, and that just takes the grounding and earthing aspect and just amplifies
one more level. Yeah. So let's talk about, if we go in order of what I think is so critical, the second thing that is critical is gut health. Although a healthy diet supports that, I want to make sure I have the healthiest gut around. So I do spore-based probiotics, which, by the way, spore-based probiotics are the only probiotics that travel through the human stomach, and because of the acidity, can actually resist the acid, get into the intestines, and germinate. In addition to their metabolites, those chemicals that these spore-based or any probiotics create, can also get into the gut. So regular probiotics, their metabolites get into the gut and they do their benefit, but they're killed in the stomach acid, so they can't regenerate. Studies have been, double-blind studies have been done on this, and it has been reported. So I use only spore-based probiotics. It is critical for my gut. The third thing, in my opinion, is to make sure my immune system is ideal. So the diet and the gut are the most important things for my immune system, but I supplement, and I don't like supplements, the word supplements, but I do add some herbal extract products, because some of the research has shown that it is a stimulant to the immune system, and I just want my immune system as best as I can. After that, the next thing that I think is critical would be the immunotherapy and the pulse electromagnetic field treatment. So the immunotherapy that I have, obviously I didn't have until October/November 2019, and then I've done this on a regular basis. So immunotherapy is very unique. There is a paper that has been published a year, 2 years ago, maybe a year ago, that actually was in one of the oncology medical journals, which is fascinating because this is conventional medicine all of a sudden. And it says that maybe the immunotherapy that is being discovered today, because only 20% or so have success with immunotherapy, interestingly enough, long-term success. Actually, very long-term success is even less. But to extend their life for 3-4 years, only 20 to 30% with immunotherapy are getting that result. The question is, why are 20 to 30% getting a good result and 70% are still dying? It turns out that the gut microbiome has a huge effect on the efficacy of the immunotherapy. And if you have a healthy gut microbiome, meaning you don't have gut dysbiosis, the immunotherapy can be that much more beneficial.
Wow.
That's an important statement. And it's published in several medical journals that relate to oncology. So I am very critical with my gut, and I believe my immunotherapy is working well. The one drug that I take is called Darzalex. Darzalex is very specific. It's an infusion, so they have to put it in my vein. It takes 2 hours or so, once a month now. And it attacks a specific protein that is on the surface of my malignant plasma cells in great abundance. Unfortunately, that protein is on other cells like the red blood cells, but not in a large number. So there's always a potential of an anemic situation, which I've never had. But
I'm sure the red meat helps with that.
Yes, plus my immune system support, which is the carnivore diet. So basically, it will kill malignant plasma cells, and I have another immunotherapy. And again, this is human-derived monoclonal antibodies to help with some of the cells that have destroyed my bone. It's called Xgeva, Xgeva. It's not bisphosphonate therapy that has been done like Fosamax, because that causes another series of problems, and it's metabolized not by the kidney, which is healthier. So those two things I do take, but I think my support from my gut is going to make these very, very efficient. For example, there is a research paper that shows Darzalex, when it is being given to the select patient load that can take Darzalex for multiple myeloma, only 1% of the population becomes eventually cancer-free. Now, this is a disease that's incurable, right? So 1% is terrible. Now, a large percent live an extra 3 years or so, but if I'm going to do it, I want to live a long time like I am living now with no decrease in quality of my life. That's
Yeah.
so critical.
Yeah.
So I'm doing what I'm doing, and I think that the immunotherapy, I don't want to discount conventional medicine, guys. Come on, be
Yeah,
realistic.
for sure.
There is some science that we need to have, but the problem is there's a disconnect between science and our natural ability to heal. I want my ability to heal as best as I can make it, and then give me something that's really going to take care of my disease and not kill anything else in my body.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think where a lot of the health people like you and I and some of the people watching get really mad with conventional medicine is it totally forgets about the fact that there's an entire human body system to deal with. And it just says, oh, we're just going to kill this thing, but we don't know if we're going to kill anything else. We're just going to try to kill this one thing. And so often medicine is disconnected from the idea that we're a living being. So.
Every cell in our body communicates with every other cell in one way or another, which we don't understand completely. Every microbe in our body communicates with every other microbe in our body. As a matter of fact, we have 38 trillion microbes in our body, and we only have 30 trillion human cells. So you, Michael, are actually more bacteria-oriented than human-oriented.
Yeah,
and me too. So we are who we are because of our microbial community working in our favor.
Yeah.
And we don't want to harm Mother Nature. We want to be very sweet and kind to this body that we have. Yeah. It's a very important thing, and especially in my situation, a life-death situation, an incurable situation where I should have been dead by December 2018 if my physician was correct. I want to do, this is my castle right now. I want to make sure I have everything in place that I can. I don't want to do exotic treatment that only one group of people think is going to cure my cancer, and it's going to cost $100,000 and I have to travel to the North Pole to do it. I'm not going to do that. I want things that are research that have been done by several medical communities, maybe alternative, but several medical communities around the world that have reported their findings, and it makes sense. Has to make sense to me. And that's why I do what I do. And that's why pulse electromagnetic field therapy is critical. Now, here's a problem with pulse electromagnetic field therapy. There are mats, pulse electromagnetic field mats, all around. There are so many companies. Most of them are not efficient. They are actually damaging our body. They have pulsed or they have wave patterns that are sharp, jagged patterns of waves, frequencies that are not compatible with our human cells' frequencies. Yeah. So you have to have some research behind these mats. So the company that I went with has 20 plus years of research, and they have patents that only they can actually create in their mat because they're patented. Yeah.
What's the name that you use?
So the mats come from Germany, and it's imported in the United States by a company called PureWave, PureWave. And PureWave, they may say PureWave now, NOW.com. Okay. I'm not sure how they're doing their website right now, but their website talks about a lot of things. The research is in Germany. A lot of the research is all published in German, and it's been translated into English. But it's got a lot of significant patents. One of the patents, which is an important patent, is that all pulse electromagnetic field mats generate dirty electromagnetic fields with voltage spikes.
And fairly sensitive to those myself. So
okay, so they have a patent that filters out the 50 to 60 hertz dirty fields that are inherent in all mats. Okay. The other patent that they have is a patent that has shown that it actually improves the ion transfer system in the cells. Now, that's a critical factor because there is junk that gets in and out of the cell. The cell has to be able to suck in nutrients and express toxic or waste material. And when the millipotential millivolt potential from the outside to the inside cell is not working right. The osmotic potential or just the sucking ability is not working effectively. Some of the, let's say, calcium that gets into the cell in a necessary fashion can't get pushed out of the cell, and it causes damage. So this improves the ion transfer between the inside and the outside of the cell. The other patent that they have is a patent, and it enhances mitochondria, which it repairs mitochondria. And I did some independent research before I had cancer with my wife to show that this particular mat improves the electronic transport chain in mitochondria that creates ATP. And I can talk to you about that. And I have some articles that I wrote on my website.
And I've talked a little bit on that before, but ATP is like, so if mitochondria is the power plant of the cell, the ATP is almost like the fuel, the battery.
Right. It's like if you think about a flashlight and you want the light to work, obviously you have to put batteries in. You turn the switch on, you have a bright light. And if you keep the bright light on, eventually it dims because the batteries are weakening, and eventually it dies because the battery's dead. So that battery is the mitochondria, and what junk is inside the battery to make the electrons move, the electricity to run, would be the ATP. And so that ATP is the fuel. And we have to generate healthy fuel. And cancer is a disease of metabolic dysfunction. That's why I'm so involved with the diet and the gut, but it's also a disease of mitochondrial dysfunction, meaning that the mitochondria are inefficient, they're not working properly, they can't create ATP in a normal process, oxidative phosphorylation, but they can take glucose, which they gobble up, and ferment that by a method of glycolysis to create their energy. It's not efficient, but they use so much glucose, they create a lot of energy, and they can do what they do to damage the body. So I want to repair my mitochondria as best as I can, and this mat from PureWave Now actually enhances the health of the mitochondria. I have never seen proof to that other than what I tested with my wife. And I use a test called mitoswab.com. Mitoswab is the first non-invasive test for mitochondrial health. It's just a little buccal swab of the cheek, and the scientists and the medical doctors at Mitoswab can evaluate the electron transport chain and its efficiency from protein complex 1, 2, 3, 4, and eventually to 5, where the ATP is created. And when I was doing this for my wife every day, every night for 4 continuous months, we had a baseline start study of the Mitoswab, and then every month for 4 months, the medical doctors at Mitoswab contacted me and said, "What supplement is your wife taking to improve her mitochondria? We've not seen that improvement over a course of 4 months." And I said, "She's not on any supplement at all. We're just using a pulse electromagnetic field therapy mat from this company." And so it's not scientific. I can't prove anything. There was no controls. I can just tell you I believe it, and that's why I use it. So in my opinion, pulse electromagnetic field therapy is very important for what I'm trying to do in my body.
My friend Kelly Troop, and I think you guys have had some back and forths before. She was curious if you've ever looked into BioBalance, because that's another popular one out there that different people like Ben Greenfield recommends that. So,
well, is BioBalance actually pulse electromagnetic fields, or is it red light therapy or amethyst type crystal therapy?
PEMF mat. Because she posted that when you were talking about Pure Waves. So
I haven't done the research on BioBalance. I do know that there are so many mat companies that generate a lot of waves that are not compatible. Some of these waves have high voltage spikes that actually make a lot of noise, and really you feel the waves, but actually, in fact, you really shouldn't feel these waves if they are doing what they were supposed to do. Now, these are not stimulating heat. They're not stimulating muscle contraction. They're not building muscle. There are other mats that can do all kinds of things, literally exercise your muscles, like isotonic exercise, from what I understand, although I've never researched it. And there may be other mats that are as good and maybe better. I don't know. I'm just telling you, I've done the research for my personal use.
Yeah.
This makes sense. They have patents, which means no other company can do what they say they're doing in the same technology because
Yeah.
it's patented. So, and it's got 20 years of research behind it.
The mitochondrial test, that's new to me. I didn't know that was a possibility.
Yeah. So they had, I think it's called Mita Swab Plus, which is another test where they actually can look at every protein complex. The regular Mita Swab, I think, looks at 2 of the 5 complexes. The Mita Swab Plus looks at protein complex 1, 2, 3, and 4, and its resulting ATP that's created in complex 5. So it's very, very interesting. It's got, I think, 82% sensitivity or efficacy or whatever compared to the traditional way to test mitochondria, which is painful. That's a muscle biopsy that has to be done. You're not going to do it on a regular basis. That's pretty uncomfortable. Yeah. So this is a very good way. And if the mitochondria in your cheek are healthy, it basically transfers to probably the rest of the mitochondria in your body are as healthy.
Sure, that's terrific. I guess so. The PEMF is for rebuilding the bones, as well as you have another thing you're doing for that as well. Is
yeah. So yes, the PEMF. There is medical research that shows PEMF helps heal bone and heal soft tissue. It is actually used for osteoporotic patients. So I would like to think that that is working to some extent. I don't know that it is that much because of that much damage that I have in my bone. So I am doing some stuff that help with bone metabolism. And I take a supplement called OsteoVegan from a company. I think it's, I can't remember the name of the company, but that actually supports remineralization of the bone. It is for patients that have osteoporosis. It's not a prescription. You can get it over the counter. Again, I forgot the company that's making it. But I think that helps with, I take vitamin D3. I take 5,000 units of vitamin D3 at this time. And I base it on what my 25 OH vitamin D test shows. So I'm running, normal would be 40 to 60 nanograms per liter. That's where you should be, theoretically. With cancer and some other diseases, it may require a higher level. Right now, I'm at 80 to 85 nanograms per liter. I think that's high. I don't need to maintain that. So I drop from 10,000 international units to 5,000, and I'll see where that goes. But I want to be certainly well to the upper range of normal or slightly above. So that's important for me. I take vitamin K2. Obviously, you need vitamin K2 if you take vitamin D3. I get plenty of healthy retinol from my carnivore diet. You need vitamin A. You need magnesium. You can get that from the carnivore diet. You can do all these other things from the carnivore diet. You can't get vitamin D3 from a carnivore diet. So you have to think in terms of supplementing, or ideally being in the sun. It's a little difficult for me. Although now I'm more mobile, I can do that. There's some foods that give you vitamin D3, vitamin D, like egg yolks and mushrooms that have been sitting in the sun, and some sardines. There are some foods that give you some vitamin D3. You just need to have your blood test to make sure you're at the right level. So certainly 40 to 60 nanograms per liter would be where you want to be, or slightly higher.
Awesome. So we covered a lot today. This was terrific. And I know my friend Kelly that's chimed in a couple times here. She is, first off, I'll put this up so you can see this. She said, just amazing story. Absolutely love it. So, and she is.
I know Kelly because I think I've communicated with her on Messenger or in Facebook. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. She's a fellow.
Hey, Kelly, how are you? I'm alive and well. See, I'm a 73-year-old guy that really is alive. I'm not joking.
It cracks me up because you don't even look 73 yet, let alone 73 years old with cancer. And what are you?
So let me tell you the best part, right? Let's talk about the best part. So I'm going through all this stuff, and it comes May of 2020. My oncologist says, let's do a new PET scan just to see where the cancer cells are. So the first PET scan when I was diagnosed in September 2018 had literally multiple areas of cancer cells lighting up on the CAT scan. And then June 2019, the same thing, and there was no remission, lots of cancer cells, although I was feeling great, no problem, but I wasn't getting better and I wasn't getting worse, but I could live that way. Then in May 8th, 2020, I have a new PET scan from the tip of my head to the tip of my toes, so it's a full body. And that evening, my oncologist, George, calls me and he says, make sure your wife is on speakerphone. And I said, no problem. She gets on speakerphone and he's literally is reading the radiology report. And the radiologist says, there are no active cancer cells throughout your entire body. Now, wait a minute. I'm saying, George, read that again. Wait a minute. Read that again. So he was shocked. I'm not in remission, okay? But he was shocked in that report because no one expected the cancer cells to disappear.
Yeah.
Now, the PET scan has limitations. It only looks at moderate to large clumps of cancer cells. So I'm realizing that there are cancer cells that still could be there that are not showing, but it's so much better than the other two because it basically was a negative cancer cell PET scan. So that meant a lot. Of course, I'm thinking maybe they forgot to inject the radioactive glucose, but they injected me with something. It took 40 minutes for me to do that. So I'm assuming they did it right because I know that I got charged for it. So I'm assuming that they did it right. So I still have large amounts of protein in my serum that is related to the malignant antibodies that are being created by my plasma cell or the malignant plasma cells that are creating unhealthy antibodies. So it could be that the cancer cells are dying and there's still remnants that need to get cleaned out, or they're already dead. And it just takes time for my immune system to detoxify everything and everything else that needs to go on. Yeah. But I am telling you, I am feeling phenomenal. I walk outside and I have my femurs are supported because they fractured. The right was terrible. The left was not so bad. But I have titanium plates and screws in my legs so I can walk. All right, I'm fine. I just light up on a X-ray machine if I ever went to an airplane, which I'm not doing anymore. So I have limitations with that, but I walk a mile a day now. I do squats, but it's modified. I do push-ups, but they're modified. I still have this fractured right humerus that healed by secondary intention, so it has a callus formation. Because of that healing that it was broken, it looks like I have a huge bicep on my right arm. It's not a bicep, unfortunately. It's not He-Man guy. It is an angle of bone. It looks like I have two elbows. So I'm a freaky looking guy, not a problem. I can live with that. I have limitations. I can't raise my arm real high on the right, but I can write and do anything I need to. I can slap my wife around every now and then with my right hand, but she hits me so much harder. It's not even worth it. But I feel good. I'm doing stuff. I'm very active. And I think I may go into remission. I may even cure this disease that has never been cured ever. My oncologist tells me he has no patient that he's treating that is getting the results that I have, and no patient that he's treating that's doing metabolically what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So he's impressed and I'm impressed.
Well, I sure hope this means that maybe, just maybe, you change one doctor's mind and he starts working with his patients a different way, and the downstream effect of your courage to face death and face the reality of what death is. I don't want to do that anytime soon, and your courage, I pray that it has affected a lot of people now. So that would be very
kind. You're very kind. As a matter of fact, there is a physician who I've talked to that is trying to arrange for some of his colleague or one of his colleagues to actually write up my case report for a prestigious, hopefully prestigious medical journal because these stories need to be told, and
Yes.
the more they're told, then somebody somewhere will say, maybe we need to do a control study. Let's have some people not on a diet like this, some people on a diet like this, see what their results are getting, along with my other protocols. But my protocols are not for just cancer, except for the immunotherapy. Basically, this is to support my immune system. Everybody's immune system can be enhanced by the stuff that I do. And if you look and talk about COVID right now, the reason that we have this pandemic worldwide is a lot to do with our unhealthy systems.
A friend of mine likes to say that humans are the only animal on this planet that are confused about food. And
there you go.
It's so right. And it's just amazing.
Because food has become such a moneymaker for so many industries, and to push their food, they need to make it palatable, look good, smell good, taste good, crunch well, and they use the food products that are the cheapest to accommodate those goals. And unfortunately, these are the cereals that kids eat all the time, and these are the burgers and whatever, and the fries and the sodas and whatever we're drinking. And there's a fast food restaurant nearby that makes these shakes that has probably 12,000 calories in it, and maybe 7,000 grams of carbs just in one drink. So I mean, it is what it is. It smells good, it looks good, tastes good. It's marketed really well. And when you do that, we're a society that wants to do all this stuff. And of course, if we get sick, we only want to take up one pill only one time a day to get healthy. And it can't last any longer than 7 days, or I'm going to find somebody else.
Yep. Yeah, that's exactly right. And here I'm in the Pittsburgh region in Pennsylvania, our little tri-state area. I've heard time and again for 20 years now that we have a lot of medications pushed here. And the reason is because the patients have trained the doctors that if they come to the doctor's office and don't get a medication, the doctor didn't do their job. So they've been trained that way by the patients. So
I see that when I was practicing conventional periodontics, I saw that all the time.
Yeah. So we have one more question from someone. It's actually my beautiful wife. She says, do you consult specifically with individuals diagnosed with cancer?
Absolutely. And actually, I do that all around the world. If you went to my website, and I do that in reference to, I need to have these individuals fill out a questionnaire that goes into some depth, and they provide a 3-day food journal for me so I can understand what kinds of foods that they're eating, the quality of foods they're eating, so that I get a better understanding. But under consultations, there is a little drop-down window right there, and the second one down basically tells how to go about it. You fill out the questionnaire online. You fill out the 3-day food journal online. It gets submitted online directly to my email. You schedule it through PayPal and this scheduling thing on the bottom right-hand side. I only do consults, I think, on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. I can't remember the days specifically. And they're basically an hour consult, 50-minute consult. And we go into great depth. I cannot diagnose a disease. I'm not an oncologist. I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not going to treat your cancer. But what I can do is give you an idea of the other methods to support your immune system and overall health. And without a doubt, if cancer is going to be treated successfully, no matter what method is used, you must support your natural healing process, even if you're doing chemotherapy. So even if you're doing chemotherapy and you get a good result, if you're eating junk and you're not taking care of your body, you're either going to have more cancer later on, or you won't have the result that you think you should have had, or your body just has other chronic diseases that are breaking your body down. So everything talks among themselves. Like I said, every cell in your body communicates with every other cell. You have to have this homeostatic living structure in unison, working for the best that you can be.
Yeah. And man, you have said a lot of things exactly right in my book today.
Well, you gave me the script to read, so I did what you told me.
And so something else that on your blog, on your website, let me bring that back up one more time. You have pretty much written a blog post every week, every couple weeks through this whole
Generally
process.
every Monday for the last for the last 5 years, I've been writing blogs.
Yeah.
And when I was diagnosed with cancer in September 2018, I started my blogs about my journey. I had no idea where I was going. I just want to let people know that I have a terminal disease and I may only be living 3 to 6 months, but I want you to know that I am being proactive and trying to do what I can do. And if you have a disease like this, definitely don't listen to one professional and succumb to that thought process unless you totally believed it.
Yeah.
Ask questions, make sure your questions are answered. If your healthcare professional doesn't answer your questions or makes fun of them or poo-poos them, fire that healthcare professional. There are many others that you can see, and do some research independently. Sadly, if you Google something, you'll get all kinds of information. Unfortunately, a lot of it is false. And then a lot of it is controversial, and you don't know necessarily how to pick through it. But go to an organization like PubMed where you can at least get peer-reviewed results. Now, sometimes they are controversial, of course they are, and sometimes they're not right. But if you look up a procedure or some modality that you've researched and look at different practitioners from around the world that are trying to do that and substantiate that, and they're reporting that in peer-reviewed journals, which means other medical professionals make sure that their facts are factual. It's not fake news, sadly enough. It's the real thing. Then at least you have something to support a thought where you want to go.
There are entire books written on just how to read research papers. So go get one of those before
Let me give you, I don't know how much time you have. Let me give you one quick example that was just published a few weeks ago, and it's relative to my profession. So obviously most people won't get it, but that's okay. It's talking about a particular bacterium that is very virulent when it gets overgrown in the mouth, causing periodontal disease. And it's called P. gingivalis, Porphyromonas gingivalis, very long name for a little guy. And it's causing lots and lots of damage when it gets overgrown. But this paper wanted to prove that you can swallow it and it can disturb your gut microbiome. I don't believe that that's the case, but the study actually used an animal model to prove it. They put the P. gingivalis in mice mouth. The mice had to swallow it, and lo and behold, it created infection in the gut. But they failed to make known that, and most animal studies fail to make known, that mice and rats have an acid level in their stomachs of 3.5 to maybe 4.8. Mm-hmm. The P. gingivalis isn't killed in that acid environment. It goes through to the gut. In the human, you, me, and most people, if they have a healthy stomach, your acid level is 1 to 1.3. It kills P. gingivalis. Yeah. So that's not the course through the gut to the gut. Now they can get into the gut in other ways. It can travel the lymph. It can travel through the blood system. It can travel through the myelin sheaths of nerves. Very interestingly, it's very interesting that they tried to prove a fact without giving you the fact that mice cannot destroy the pathogens that are not natural to their body.
Maybe they were trying to compare it to people who drank a whole lot of alkaline water.
That's another problem. Or using baking soda, thinking that's healthy. Swallow all this baking soda and neutralize your stomach acid. Crazy. Yeah. I do want to also make one huge point. Most biological dentists really concentrate on putting materials in the body, in the mouth, that are not toxic to the rest of the body, and they do a great job. They believe, and rightly so, that some bacteria in the mouth cause gum disease, without a doubt. The problem is a lot of dentists and some biological dentists believe that to treat gum disease, one of the things you have to do is literally kill the bacteria in your mouth using antimicrobial mouthwashes, trays that have all kinds of antibiotics in it that you sleep in at night, and destroy this microbiome. The fact is, dental plaque is healthy until it's not. And the reason it's not is because you have to have gut dysbiosis in some way that creates a change in the immune system in some way that damages the circulatory system with systemic inflammation in some way that actually gets into the mouth in a variety of mucous membrane ways and actually changes the microbial garden to a very healthy homeostatic garden to dysbiotic. And that is the way pathogens in the mouth that are not pathogens yet, they're just there creating a balance of bacteria, then they overgrow. And then the food that you eat, which probably maybe cause some of the problems in the gut. There are other factors that cause problems in the gut, but food certainly, the inflammatory foods of grains and sugars and processed seed oils and that kind of stuff, damage and feed the bacteria in the mouth that are becoming pathogenic. So the disease, like Hippocrates said 4,000 years ago, all disease starts in the gut. I think he's probably right. And the disease starts in the gut, but it's not easy to see in the gut. All the functional tests are very, very not predictive for the most part. Very, very poorly predictive of disease. So the mouth is the mirror to the body's infections. A trained dentist can look in the mouth and see inflammation. You may not visualize it, but he or she can see inflammation. Anytime the mouth bleeds, any area of the gum that bleeds with little stimulation, not scrubbing it hard, but little cleaning devices, and you get a little bit of pink, you have active gum disease. It may not be severe, but you have infection. If you were a man shaving, maybe you don't shave so much, maybe, but you do trim. If you're a woman putting your makeup on, you're looking in a mirror probably, unless you really know what you're doing. But if you're looking in the mirror and you had a drop of blood drip out of your ear, would that bother you?
Certainly.
Maybe. Yeah. Well, why does it not bother most people when they brush and they see a little pink? One of the reasons is you go to the dentist, you have the dental hygienist clean your teeth. That's questionable that it should be done, by the way. You have your dental hygienist clean your teeth, and you say, how's my mouth? And she says, oh, it looks really good. It's a little bleeding here, but around a couple molars, but everything is great. It's not great. If you have bleeding a little bit in one isolated area, you have infection. Unless she slipped with her instrument and cut the gum, or she used dental floss like most people do incorrectly and shave and saw through the gum tissue and cut it, and that's why I don't like dental floss at the gum line, then it will bleed. Just like if you cut yourself with a razor blade, your skin's going to bleed, but it's going to heal. Mm-hmm. But the mouth, if it's bleeding with normal cleaning techniques, you have gum infection. And it didn't start in the mouth. It started in the gut. It changed the immune system, so it allowed the bacteria to get out of balance and destroy the healthy plaque and becomes unhealthy growth of plaque.
I think it'd be great to have you back on sometime just to talk about actual...
Well, what, 2 hours now from now? Yeah, 3 hours? I still have coffee, so I'm good.
I know, right? But yeah, to actually have you come on and talk about just the dental care side of things and what really needs to be done in our mouths, especially eating carnivore. I get a little bit of plaque and I have a little scraper and I use that. I don't even brush every day anymore. I brush most days, but it's very mild that I do anything with my mouth, and it's a lot better and healthier, less bad breath than I've ever had in my life. So
you're absolutely correct. We can do that, and I can actually show you things, little devices that I use, the way to brush, the way to clean between the teeth, the way to clean the tongue. I can show you all that.
Awesome.
And we can go into detail about that. Sure, of course.
Well, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. I mean, this is a long one. My buddy Corey just jumped on too, it looks like. And so really excited to have you on, Doc. I'm really excited how well you're doing. This is something that we don't see enough of, because not enough people, like I said, they don't have the courage that you have and that you took into this situation. And really grateful that you are here, and really grateful that you are trying the things and using the things that you are doing. Anybody who wants to reach out to Dr. Danenberg, he's active on Facebook. He's active on his through his website. You can find him there. Everything is in the description below below this video. And Dr. Danenberg, thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for the invitation, Mike. I really appreciate it. Nice meeting you too.
Yeah, you as well. And stick around. I'm going to end the broadcast now. And everybody, thank you again.
Perfect.